All right. Last things last. I'm gonna talk about the hunt for a bit, right?
Right.
So I tried my hardest to be kind of nonplussed. Not to say I didn't care or anything like that, but just I didn't
Right.
want this to tarnish my enjoyment factor of the show, right? The so-called controversy behind this film, right?
Right. Right.
Apparently, there were a couple of it was supposed to be scheduled. It was supposed to be out September of last year, but because the mass shootings that took place, a month earlier in the States, they
Yeah.
held it back, and apparently there was something involving Trump and something that he said. But mainly it was
Right.
just because of the subject matter, and when they had like test screenings, it kind of rubbed people off the wrong way. So from a marketing perspective, they just attach this whole, oh well, check out this movie that's so incredibly disturbing and controversial, that kind of stuff, right? But what I figured is that they just would show, at least, well, this is Universal and Blumhouse, right? They would show how to market a film, which is just basically characters being hunted by, Americans being hunted down by other Americans, basically, right? So how
Right.
do you do that, right? But in this case, because of the political aspect of it, it's right wing versus left wing, basically, right? So how do you market a film like that? It's like, oh, well, we can't really do that. But then because of the success of Joker, and just something that's so incredibly dark and disturbing and controversial, quote unquote, could make a ton of money in the box office. Well, they
Right.
decided to put it out early of this year. But we were supposed to get this, before the coronavirus became a worldwide pandemic. We were supposed to get
Right.
this on a particular weekend. I think it was like a few weeks ago, but that plan got cancelled, and how it came out online. So it's one of the, well, I don't want to say many movies, but yeah, one of the set of movies that came out on VOD, right? Digitally, I should say. So I gave it a look. I mean, there were other shows I could have chosen. You know what I mean? Some of which I may talk about in the subsequent episodes here. But I picked this one because I don't know. I was just curious about it. I was curious to see what the big deal was. Why people talking about this thing? Why they have this stigma about it being so uncomfortable and disturbing and all that good shit, right? But what is this about in a nutshell? It kind of just drops you into this reality, right, of the United States. It's never stated if it's like in the near future or anything like that. I don't think it is, but
It's present. It wasn't that far. I didn't get the sense that it's present. It's present.
yeah, it is, yeah. So right off the bat, they clearly they aiming for social satire or political satire, right?
Right.
Right, which I like going into this, like I didn't know they were going to take this political stance because, like I say, I didn't want to know much about what's going on behind the scenes. I just wanted to see the show for what it is,
Yeah.
right? So that off the bat, this kind of threw me off balance. Like, okay, this is what we're going at. Okay, all
Yeah.
right, but right. So it's a present day, right? And essentially, we are introduced to a bunch of characters who, in Hunger Games fashion, well,
Right.
it's more a mixture of Hunger Games and, well, the movie that pretty much inspired Hunger Games, still one of the best Japanese movies out there, and controversial in Japan for a reason, Battle Royale.
Right.
Because yeah, because people then people in Japan, and even up to this day, that's the subject matter. Because you're talking about high school kids basically being put in a position where they have to kill each other to survive, Dread, in this game. Like that in itself is enough to rub anybody off the wrong way in Japan, right? So, but outside of that, we just watch this kind of oddity, but at the same time, it's just a dope movie, right? But I never forgot when I saw Hunger Games the first time, right? And I was wondering why it wasn't as grim and dark and violent as Battle Royale was, right? But in this case, with the hunt, it's every bit as dark and grim and violent, right? Right off the bat, characters are being picked off one after the next. I like that approach basically, right? Where you're not really sure who to follow, right? You think you're following
Yeah.
this character get wiped out, right? But essentially the main character who we get who we realize later on is the protagonist is the character of Crystal, right? Who is played by Betty Gilpin. If you're a fan or if you've been watching Glow from Netflix, you would know who
Yeah,
she
yeah, yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah,
From
she
Glow, yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Liberty Bell, right?
Liberty Bell, yeah.
One of my favorite characters in that show, hands down, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
Liberty Bell, yeah.
yeah, right off the bat, she is a bad ass in this though.
Right,
Like
yeah,
this
yeah.
is a star-making performance from her. Like she's just she reminded me a lot, and this is a reference people will make too. She reminded me of like Kurt Russell or from
Yeah,
Escape from New York, just that badass character who will just take no shit from nobody, right? She's always
right.
thinking, she's always on the fire. And yeah, she will kick ass. She will literally will kick ass too. There's some great action scenes with her, right? But yeah, essentially we follow her, and it's just her kind of making sense of what's going on, right? And that's the kind of jump into the review here. So what I thought going in was okay, this is sort of a Hunger Games scenario. We have some dark secret organization that just picked these guys out of the blue to hunt them down because, like I think it also to, the Purge there, where it's this sort of social cleanse. We must get rid of these individuals, right? So essentially, it's like the liberal rich, you know what I mean, going up against these people, and then we learn later on, well, they spoke out against, abortion and homophobia and all that kind of stuff. There,
Right,
so
right, right, right.
that's why they got chose to be in this thing. Kind of weird, but okay, okay.
I
What?
thought that was a little, how they did that was a little on the clumsy end of things. That was the problem. Like, I really hated the ending of this movie. I thought the ending sucked.
It
Yeah.
did. And here's the thing, right? Just to talk about satire for a bit, right? So, okay, cool. Like, all right, this is what we going for, right? But I felt like I don't know. Every time they always bring it up because they always kind of stop the show to kind of tell you, oh well, all these stigmas about the left and the right. We're gonna just poke fun at that. So our character is gonna
Right,
say something and it's just gonna stop to make this thing. And usually it's done in this kind of dark, humorous way, but I just didn't
right,
get it. And just mainly because I am not American, right? But that's not to say
right.
that the show shouldn't do that or touch
Right.
that. But I
I,
felt also
I,
at the same time, one thing, I also felt at the same time too, it should have commit a lot more into that. You're like, okay, you want to talk about politics, okay, stick to that. But it just to me kind of felt like, okay, we'll make this political joke and then we'll show you some kind of act of violence, somebody getting killed. And like, I was just thinking about the whole controversial aspect of it, right? Then I just watched this and like, no, this is not shocking. Yeah, it's brutal, but I
right.
kind of expected that. But it's not shocking. Like, oh my god, this is one of the most controversial movies of all time. But then you tell me, okay, well, the controversy really comes in the politics. And it's like, well, not really. It's just you make a joke of this side and the other side, and well, that's the point. Is well, we just take it to the extreme. But I just felt personally, before we get to your thoughts, that they could have just taken all the politics altogether. I think they could have just left the politics altogether and just give us rich against poor kind of thing, that kind of vibe. Or they could have commit
Problem.
even more to the politics, but still balance it out well enough there so you get where they go where they get at. You know what I mean? It just felt like they would kind of switch sides a lot. Like it has this identity crisis. That's how I felt
Right.
with this show.
No, all right. So the problem with it, okay, so my problem with it was you're doing a bunch of things about politics, but you just kind of, it was just a joke more than anything. So you just need, oh, well, we're not really having any take on anything. We're just doing a joke. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
It's just
you're not like I say, you're not committed, you're not really taking any sides. Just,
exactly
isn't this funny? This is the kind of stuff
right.
that left argues about, or when the right argues, right?
Yeah, they try to make fun of both sides. So they talk about, they make fun of the whole what do you call it, boy? They try to make fun of the whole, liberals correcting themselves and being all politically correct to the point of silliness kind of attitude.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then
In one cringe-worthy scene involving this elderly couple talking about we don't use the N-word anymore. You know me, we have to
right,
call it. Well, do we still call them blacks? And this is a reference
right,
to African Americans, right? Yeah.
right. But it does, yeah. And I felt overall everything was just really clumsy in terms of how it was done in that sense. And then, well, everybody's on the other side. There's a bunch of stereotypes. In terms of the framing of the right wingers. Now it's like, oh well, yeah, it's a bunch of like Trump supporter psychopaths and whatnot. But then they get it wrong, and they did this thing which didn't make any sense to me, which is they went to like they were on train and the train was off to go off in the country because they was in I forget where it was, in Georgia or something, like one of those European
Yeah.
countries. Croatia, I think.
That scene in particular made no
Make any
sense then,
sense.
especially
Yeah,
context.
I don't know.
Okay, you want
Like
to
why they
say and have a part involving like these Arabians. But this guy who we literally thought is this podcaster, he always talking politics, saying,
Right.
"Oh, don't trust these. They're not real Arabians." Blah 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 blah. There's only one person who's not Arabian,
Right.
but the way how he
But then,
goes off to is like, dog, what's the
yeah,
point? And then the part with the
and that's
Croatia part,
and
you end up realizing, well, Crystal assumes because they create the scenario where it's like, well, they Croatia, but I wonder, well, what's the point of this? Because they kind of throw in
yeah.
the Croatia thing when they realize no,
This
they're
is the thing
still in
because
the States, but what's the point?
yeah,
I don't understand.
yeah, but the joke is well, all right, the guy who working for the American embassy really working for them for them to go them back to kill them, and that's why she killed the fellow, and she just had to go back to kill them, and that was kind of unclear to me. Like I get is a real Snake Plissken kind of logic of well, no,
Right,
you
right.
you try to kill us, we gotta come back for you, kind of right, that kind of thing now. But then, but that didn't really fall. That fall completely flat because of the way you find out at the ending. And I find story wise it could have gel a little better. Like I like the action. It's actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
The action I'll give credit where credit is due. The
right.
action is well done, like well shot, well
Yeah.
choreographed. I would say, especially
Yeah.
I forgot to mention the main baddie. I didn't know she was in this was Hilary Swank. I was like, oh, okay.
Right. Right. Right.
So she doesn't really get to relive, Million Dollar Baby, but you do have a nice, sweet little fight scene involving her, which was
Yeah.
solid. The the,
Well,
the build up to it though, however, was like, okay, we had to stop to have these characters drone
right.
on about political beliefs and why we doing this and blah blah blah. And then they do this twist, like uh, around the second act, the third act, and then you realize, like in my head, I tell myself, okay, I thinking not to this the future society doing this thing, so it's kind of like a purging where you kind of have to do it to cleanse the country of these ills.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, it's because of some assumption that was made, and then it blew up online, and it has like a kind of Watergate thing going on. So this is them taking revenge on these same
Right.
people that
And that was kind of interesting when they get you know when they get pulled into that whole thing now, where it's like, oh,
right.
it was a joke, and then they use the joke to blow them. Like I thought that was kind of clever and funny on
But
its
they could
own.
explore it
But then
more though. They just kind of
this.
brought it up like, oh, this is what it is.
Right.
But and that to me is the main problem with it too. Even though there are some things in it that I like, right? Meaning the action and the battle royale as scenes. But like when it goes into story itself, like why are these things happening? Why are these characters moving this way? Why is this character as cliche as they come? Like they don't really address it. It's just, here's this couple that, it's all, pro, gun ownership and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
it's just a cliche basically, but they never really delve into why are these characters like this, you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
surface level in my opinion.
That's the problem, and it just didn't gel together for me. I find it could have worked better. They could have make it flow better. Look, I don't hate it. I can't say I hate it at all. It got the action was good. That's some legit funny moments in it. Thank you for your service. That was hilarious.
Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
But just to talk about the end in a bit. Just talk about the end before we get to read it. Um, that end, like the actual end itself, was just like,
Hated it.
okay,
Absolutely.
it felt like two people, the writer and the person who read the script, find that funny. It took me a while to really realize what he was trying to say there. So without spoiling, it's kind of saying, oh, you're not any different than the people that we supposed to hate in the show. But at the same time, it just felt so weak. Like this is
Yeah.
the best way.
Yeah.
The best way you can end this. Like no,
Yeah,
it
they
doesn't
could
do
have
the
done
sequel
better.
beat. Okay, fine, it doesn't do any sequel beating, but at the same time, it's like,
No.
that's the best
Yeah.
way I can end this. Like, whoa, it's supposed to laugh
Yeah,
at
but
this. It's supposed to be like,
Well, it
huh,
really
isn't
falls
that clever? Haha, no, it's just, it just kind of ends. And like, even I
Yeah.
myself was expecting to see some kind of post-credit scene. Like, I was waiting for something. I
No.
couldn't accept that as the end. It's like, nope, just credits, and that's the end. That's the end of the show.
Yeah.
So overall, it was far from the shocking, dark, controversial thing that the marketing said. But I'll give credit where credit is due. At least the filmmakers decided, hey, let me capitalize on this so-called controversy. Let me just make this big taboo thing that people would either care to see or not care to see, right? Because yeah, I will admit, the little marketing that it did was quite impactful though. Like even I myself
Right.
wanted to see because I was like, oh well, what's the big deal behind this? And now it's available digitally. So let me see the show that was too shocking for cinema, right? But I imagine like if it did, show in Trinidad like down here, people would have just take away just the action scenes and nothing more. People would have just not care at all about the political stances or the messages or anything about that. People would just be like, what's this? We don't care. Uh, and because this show is reliant on it, because the satirical, the sort of cynical jabs at the right and left, and because they played it off as comical, like darkly comical, yeah, they just mostly fell flat for me, except for a few scenes where I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. But once again, like I say, you know what I mean? Like this, if this is your stance, if this is where you're going, kind of explore it a little bit more. Give me a reason why the
Yeah.
characters doing what they're doing. So just having them just do stuff and they're supposed to be like, huh, is it funny if this happens one day? But like, no, you couldn't even commit to that, you know what I mean? But other than that, though, I mean, the action scenes were well handled. And like I say, this is a star-making performance for Betty Gilpin. I really would love to see her in more films. Actually, read that she's going to be in an upcoming show that's coming out on Netflix called Coffee and Kareem, which looks like complete ass, but because it's on Netflix, I don't know if I'll actually watch it. But point is, she holds the show. She really does hold the show. That's from
Yeah.
look to performance to physicality, everything, right? But everything else was just meh, in my opinion. So rated wise, I don't know. I just feel that a lighter, decent 2.5 out of 5. See it
Yeah.
if you want to see it. It's not the best thing in the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. But it's far from controversial. I really do think that the marketing was misleading. But at least I'll give them credit. At least they use it to have people talking about this show, right? Some people actually dug the political stuff in it. Some people like the fact that it doesn't take itself too seriously. But I just felt that, okay, develop your story a lot more, develop characters a little bit more. Like, kind of give us a reason why things are happening instead of, oh, this is just a familiar scenario and we have cliche characters. And not just the villains, but also the victims themselves. They came off rather cliche, in my opinion. So they really could have done a lot more with this, which is a shame. And it really would have been, one of the most controversial movies of the decade. But here's just, well, it's just there, in my opinion, right? You have
Right.
Battle Royale, you
Right.
have Hunger Games, stick with those. So, what's your final thoughts and rating on The Hunt?
Yeah, I don't know. This is one of those things that, well, I don't really fall for the hype guy. I kind of forgot this existed for a hot minute. So I was like, whatever. I just come back into it thinking, all right, let me see what it is. Oh, yeah, they was talking about this a while back. So I was like see it for what it is. And I enjoyed for what it was. I had this little moment. So it's like, hey, that guy from that show and this little guest
Yeah,
star here.
it have guys and gals from that show. Trust me.
And I dug it for what it was, and then that's it. But then the ending was real trash. I just was so disappointed with that ending. I thought it was going somewhere, and it didn't really go somewhere. That ended. It had its moments. The final fight was kind of cool, especially that part where she saved the wine bottle. That was funny.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but that was about it. I was just yeah, that was about it. I just not particularly impressed with this as a story, mostly because it just didn't have anything interesting to say. It just gave the veneer of that, but it wasn't anything interesting. Ultimately, it just had moments. It had a lot of good action star power, but I thought that because it was so empty, it just fell flat for me ultimately. Especially that ending, Dread. Holy shit, that ending sucked.
Yeah,
Um,
bro. Like I
so that,
they greenlit this. Everybody read that script and said, yeah, this is a perfect way to end that show. Like, wow. What was that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. For me, as I say, if people could go back into theaters, yeah, I give this just a CC8 or a very low movie tongue, if anything, because it is entertaining. It does keep your attention for what it was. But that's about it.
Yeah. And it doesn't last for that long. It's just roughly an hour and a half. But I don't know. They really could have done a lot with that hour and a half, regardless of the length. But I don't know. It is what it is. Maybe it'll have a cult following. Maybe people will appreciate it by years end. I kind of doubt it, but it is what it is. If you care to see it, see it. But other than that, don't believe the hype. In this case, literally don't believe the hype. And I say this too because, Public Enemy and, how they split because of politics, which is so ironic. But yeah, don't believe the hype. But yeah,
Yeah.
see it if you really need to.
Right.